Captain Atom number 10, written by J.T. Kroll, art by Freddie Williams II. Last issue we left off with all the different Captain Atoms in time, discovering that Chronomota, aka the Big Bad Energy, is actually himself in the far-off distant future, where he's just a big bad energy monster. This issue picks up in the time stream. It's actually, very easy to explain what's going on, and also extremely difficult at the same time. Easy to give broad strokes, hard to give details. So basically, all the Captain Atoms start realizing, oh, there's the energy thing. Let's all get our bearings and start fighting as best we can. But then we see as they go towards the energy thing, it does take a solid form and becomes this giant, the best I can describe is the worm from Tremors. So they all start firing on it. It's absorbing all the energy as fast as they can shoot it out. And they're like, okay, what do we do? And the one Captain Atom that's a little bit more diminutive from the beginning of this arc was like, okay, you guys keep it busy for as long as you can. I have an idea. And he just goes to before all of this happened. And we see his thought process is here's the thing. I need to go back and change something so that this doesn't happen. I could go back and stop myself from being in the accident at all. If I could just stop there, I could make the experiment successful. But what would happen if Dr. Magala is able to reach another dimension? What kind of horrors would be unleashed on the world? I could also go back and, if I want to be selfish, I could save my father. That would stop me from ever joining that military in the first place. But that seems like it would cause a whole lot of problems, because who instead would be in that room except for me? Would they have the same wherewithal? He realizes that the whole reason that Chronomota came to be a thing was because Captain Atom at some point started developing somewhat of a god complex, believing that he truly could become this savior of humanity. So he had to go back and stop that. And we see him piercing back through the times. Where did it happen? And he realizes that the moment it happened was the moment that he saved Mikey, that little kid, from cancer. So the only way to stop the destruction of all time and space is he has to go back and stop himself from curing that boy's cancer and letting him die. So we see him go back to that moment. Back in the time stream, all the Captain Atoms are fighting up against the big bad purple energy, and it starts speaking to them, and only our Captain Atom is not listening to it, but the other Captain Atoms start being basically absorbed into its thought process of seeing the way it sees everything, and how it is truly their destiny to become this, so it's pointless to resist. So we see that Captain Atom is being attacked by all the other Captain Atoms, and in order to stop them, he's like, well, wait a minute, you're me. I can just absorb you, and there won't be any consequences. So he absorbs the other Captain Atoms, and then he becomes this huge, hulked out version of Captain Atom that is able to go a bit more toe-to-toe with the Chronomota version of him. So then we cut back and we see how the other Captain Atom is stopping the cancer from truly being cured, even after all the stuff that he put through. And so the time stream does some weird stuff. It ripples around them as he changes things, and then we see it's back to essentially the present. And Captain Atom is flying over top of a graveyard and sees that the parents of Mikey are standing there over their child's grave, and he's like, wait a minute, no, I saved him. Did I not get all the cancer? I'm sure I did. What? I must not have done it. I must not be as powerful as I thought I was. So then he goes back to the Continuum. He talks to Dr. Magala. This was apparently just after they cured, what's her name? Renita's hand. So she's going out on that date with Scott, I think his name was. And Magala is basically just like, man, I don't understand why people want dinner. We're looking for all the answers of the universe here, and people are going out for dinner. And Captain Atom's like, yeah, about that. I'm going to be taking 5. I'll be back in a bit. So he goes out to the restaurant where he knows Renita is at. And he looks at her, and it turns out that Scott's not there yet. He's stuck in traffic, and she's just sitting there alone at the table. And Captain Atom realizes, you know what? Maybe I can't be God, but maybe, just maybe, I can be human. So he separates out his essence, the thing, he takes a human form, but there are 2 different Captain Atoms now. There's Captain Atom the atomic being, and there's Captain Atom Nathaniel. There's just a guy. He's just a guy, and they have a mental link. They're able to like communicate. Maybe there's a hive mind or something like that. But Nathaniel makes his way inside the restaurant, sits down with Renita, and they just share a drink. Meanwhile, actual Captain Atom is standing outside watching in the rain, and he's like, maybe they seem to be enjoying themselves. Good for them. So he still sees himself on the outside, and that he's just watching what his life could have been with Renita just unfolding. Like, literally, it's happening. So that's it. That's where the issue ends. It's a strange, like, as soon as you get into the different versions of you and altering the time stream and da-da-da-da-da, it always gets confusing. But I think that it dealt with it pretty well. I think it dealt with it in terms of, like, this is the natural... If you had a guy with a God complex and he also had the powers of God, where would he end up? And I think that did a pretty good analyzation of that. And then it showed, how can you undo it? And what ramifications would that do? I like how this is a thing of, it changes something, but then it changes everything. It's just a little butterfly effect going on throughout this world, essentially. So, no, I'm very much enjoying how this is done, and I feel like this is the end of the arc. It just has a sense of finality to it, but, we'll see in the next issue how it continues on. This particular one, I'm going to go ahead and I'm giving a 7.5. And the only reason I bring it down from an 8, because it would be an 8, is just because the part where he's in the time stream fighting Chronomoda, as soon as you recognize that the other Captain Atom has to change the past, that entire fight scene feels like it has no weight to it. It's like, no, it's just going to, as soon as the past has changed, then it's just not going to matter, because it's all going to ripple out. So that's my only thing with that, is it makes up a decent size of the issue. But it is done well enough and it looks fantastic that it still gets points just for that. So 7.5 for this, definitely enjoying.